I've been to Ukraine 3 times over roughly the last year, visiting Kyiv and President Zelensky, and I want to thank you and the President for committing to do whatever it takes. I think I'm almost quoting exactly.
That was U.S. Senator Richard Blumenthal, Democrat from Connecticut, at a Senate Armed Services Committee hearing in late March.
And in my view, whatever it takes includes airplanes, aircraft. Would you agree that as a strictly military matter, and you know a lot more about this than most of us at this side of the table, that that kind of air support from the United States is going to be necessary, and the sooner the better?
Blumenthal was asking the question of U.S. Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin. This was his reply.
What they need right now, more than anything else, is air defense. And that is the critical need on the battlefield. And they also need long-range fires and armored capability. And we are providing them a real substantial package of capability in terms of platforms, but not just that. We're also providing training, and we're providing sustainment. And, sir, you witnessed some of that coming together when you were in Grafenwehr, and I really appreciate you going out there and visiting our troops. But I think those capabilities will make the biggest difference in the near term, and they must be successful, going forward. We know the spring fighting season's in front of us here, and we want to make sure that they have what they need to be successful.
What is the intent of the escalation to an air war with Russia? Blumenthal himself answered that question. He introduced a resolution in the Senate Tuesday which calls on the U.S. to support an outright victory over Russia. A similar resolution was introduced in the House of Representatives with 18 co-sponsors, including members of both parties. Although the sense of the Senate resolution is not technically a declaration of war on Russia, Moscow may not quite appreciate the subtleties of the legalism involved, given that this resolution is more than the Congress had issued before Washington conducted, for example, its 7-month bombing campaign over Libya, or its 12-year war and occupation in Syria. Maria Zakharova is the spokesperson for Russia's foreign ministry. She spoke about this through a translator at her weekly press conference Thursday.
Recently, the head of the Ukrainian foreign ministry, Mr. Melnik, who used to make some atrocious statements as ambassador to Germany, said that the current volumes of military assistance to the Kiev regime were not enough and they needed 10 times more. According to him, the partners had to cross the artificial red lines and allocate 1% of their GDP for military shipments. The appetites of the Kiev regime are growing progressively. The NATO countries have already spent over 65 billion euro for military assistance to Ukrainian armed forces, and they continue training for the Ukrainian servicemen. On the 24th of April, the coordinator for strategic communications in the National Security Council of the White House, Mr. Kirby, boasted that the United States was preparing battalions of Ukrainian soldiers outside of the country using the so-called combined maneuvers, and using these methods that they would bring together the mechanized infantry with the air defense system, which would allow them to openly operate on the ground. Last week, according to Kirby, Kiev received a new weaponry for the sum of $325 million. The United Kingdom has sent thousands of ammunition pieces for the Challenger 2 tanks, including the depleted uranium weaponry, and they do not consider the consequences of the use of such ammunition. And they openly said that they were not responsible for the use of such ammunition and the consequences of such use.
Meanwhile, the U.S.-installed government in Kiev declared the right to destroy everything in the breakaway republics in the eastern part of Ukraine, and it did so on television. Zakharova also discussed this at her Thursday press conference at the Foreign Ministry.
We have taken note of another extremist statement of the Council of the advisor of the Office of the President of Ukraine, Mr. Podolyak, on the 25th of April. Speaking in the Ukrainian TSN TV channel, he said that Kyiv had the legal right to destroy everything located in the territory of Crimea, Luhansk, Donetsk, Zaporizhia and Kherson regions. End of quote. Everyone has realized that They are not just following the logic of destruction, they're following the logic of elimination, everything that goes against their nationalist logic and the nationalist ideology. This is exactly the ideology of the Kiev regime. And they have once again publicly declared that. They are no longer trying to hide what we've been trying to say throughout all of these 8 years. While we were told that it was just our imagination. It is not our imagination. They're already talking about this openly, realizing that they no longer have any opportunity to hold back. Now they're speaking about everything directly, openly. But now they're trying to find a legal pretext for that. They do not care whether they have any legal pretext or legal foundation. They will keep on destroying anyway. This is another confirmation of the way the Zelensky regime treats the aforementioned regions of Russia and the people living there, who the Kiev regime, supposedly going to liberate. Liberation, in their understanding, means destruction. The destructive raids and the elimination of the local population are the methods of the representatives of the Kiev regime, who we are accusing of neo-Nazism and their tendency to reincarnate the fascist practices of the past. These are exactly the practices that were previously used in these territories, and they are openly talking about this in Kiev. Can you remember the atrocities on the occupied Soviet territories? Back then, there was also an idea of a total elimination of the people living there, and now Podolak is saying the same thing.
For KPFK, I'm Don DeBar.